So, a little bit of context before we explain why we're making this video. In the 2017 NHL Entry Draft, Nolan Patrick was supposed to be the first overall pick. As a 16-year-old in the WHL the previous year, he was absolutely phenomenal. 102 points, 72 games played. He was seen as the next best thing to come out of the WHL and the next first overall pick for the upcoming year. He was all this and more. However, his draft year was plagued with injuries. He only played 33 games in the year that he was supposed to be drafted as the first overall pick. He had 46 points, which was pretty good, but his overall developmental profile wasn't that people wanted to see, especially for the standards of a first overall player. Despite that fact, though, he was still ranked to go first overall by ISS, first by Future Considerations, first by McKean, second by TSN and Bob McKenzie, and he was the top North American skater by NHL Central Scouting. Now, if you know what happened in 2017 in the entry draft, he didn't actually go first. He went second overall to the Philadelphia Flyers. First overall, the New Jersey Devils selected Nico Hischier, who had made a very good late push to project himself into that first overall caliber of players because playing for the Halifax Mooseheads in the QMJHL, he was just absolutely phenomenal. And Nolan Patrick was seen as this consolation prize. Sort of, not really a consolation prize because he was supposed to be good enough to be first overall anyway, and Philadelphia Flyers fans, guys, they were all freaking out and saying, okay, yeah, we got Nolan Patrick, dude, this is gonna be great. Now, long story short, Nolan Patrick was never really the player he was supposed to be for Philadelphia, and if you've been a fan of this channel and of hockey in general and just seeing the stories over the past few years, let alone the past few months, you would have come to familiarize yourself with the story of Nolan Patrick and his skewed development in Philadelphia, the lack of playing time, the injuries, and the deployment towards the end of his tenure in Philly. It was not really all too great. Sure, he had 30 points in 73 games in his first year, but he never significantly improved from that. The next season saw him put up the same amount of points. The year after that, he didn't play. He was injured the entire season. And then the year after that, he was kind of in the bottom of the lineup. He wasn't really being given all these opportunities. He had 9 points in 52 games played, and the word was revealed a little bit later on that he actually wanted a trade. Lo and behold, he gets traded. It's a three-way deal with Nashville and Vegas. Now he's with the Vegas system, where he has 3 points in 9 games played. But Nolan Patrick, unfortunately, alongside of Nico Hischier, is kind of labeled as a guy that probably went a little bit too high in the 2017 draft in hindsight. Now, again, he was ranked to go first. A lot of these scouting outlets had him as the number 1 player. It's only TSN and Bob McKenzie who had him at number 2 because they had Nico at number 1. Immediately after Nico and Nolan, though, went a string of very good players. Miro Heiskanen, Cale Makar, who is absolutely world-shatteringly good. We're going to have to make another video about him entirely. And then you have Elias Pettersson, who has had a very down year, but who I still believe can be a very good player. Either way, though, these three, going immediately after Nico and Nolan, were seen as all just better picks a few years down the line. And now you have yourselves what is a profile for Nolan Patrick, who got traded away as one of the bigger busts, quote-unquote, for Philly. Now, sure, Nolan Patrick is only, how old is this guy? 23 years old. He definitely can turn it around, and he can become a good player. It's just, for what he accomplished with the Flyers organization, especially as a second overall pick, it's not ideal. It's a bust because he didn't really do anything second caliber worthy with the Flyers. If he does second caliber worthy things on Vegas, then that's a different story, but we'll have to wait another day to see that. Now, the reason we're making this video is because we had ourselves what was a bombshell dropped by Bobby Clarke on the Cam Strick Podcast. Bobby Clarke, NHL legend, Hockey Hall of Fame, top 100 players of all time. We all kind of know who Bobby Clarke was. The Broad Street Bullies, baby. He went out there and was an absolute legend. But right now, he's an executive with the Flyers. He had this to say earlier on in the week on the Cam Strick Podcast about this Nolan Patrick pick. Now, you gotta remember, back then, Ron Hextall was the GM of the Flyers. He is no longer there. He is in the Pittsburgh system. But this is what he had to say. Some of these quotes went out there and absolutely shattered the collective minds of hockey fans alike. None of our scouts in 2017 wanted Nolan Patrick. They wanted Makar. Ron Hextall made the choice to draft Nolan Patrick himself, and there were other choices made in our draft that we're paying for. We've got 2 or 3 first-round picks that are never going to play. That's why we're struggling. Hexy made some huge mistakes. He also says our scouts were so mad at Hexy for trading Brayden Schenn to St. Louis. We also had a chance to get Ryan O'Reilly from Buffalo. We didn't. Obviously, that was the manager's decision, but that was another one that the scouts were not consulted on. And so, Bobby Clarke, who is a current executive of the Flyers, went out there and absolutely berated the work of former Flyers GM Ron Hextall and just critiqued everything in the most direct way possible on this podcast. We didn't want Nolan Patrick. Ron Hextall wanted Nolan Patrick. And it's kind of crazy how that's the case, right? Because as we had noted earlier on, Nolan Patrick was supposed to be first overall. The fact that he even went second in the first place was a surprise. I couldn't imagine him going third or fourth, assuming, let's say, Dallas takes Heiskanen still, Makar goes second, and then you have Nolan Patrick going fourth to Colorado. Like, that sounds so crazy to me, just even thinking about it now, you know? Back then, in 2017, it would have been even crazier. And so, to hear it straight from Clarke himself saying, yeah, all these decisions that we made that are screwing us over right now, it's Hextall's fault because we didn't want to do this. We wanted to make a trade for Ryan O'Reilly. We didn't want to trade away Schenn, but Hextall did it anyway. We didn't want to take Patrick, but Hextall did it anyway. We have first-round picks that are amounting to nothing because Ron Hextall went out there and did this. Now, there's speculation as to who those first-round picks are. Some people are saying German Rusov, Jay O'Brien, and those two guys, yeah, pretty bad picks, if I do say so myself. Jay O'Brien is the one that kind of blows my mind still. You could also have a conversation about Sam Morin, too. There are a whole bunch of guys that the Flyers have picked that have been pretty questionable picks, but just hearing it from an executive of the NHL's team itself makes it so much more mind-blowingly strange, right? Like, I think it was Sam Constantino yesterday who said this on TV, but insiders, NHL insiders, they can sit there and speculate all they want. They can attach names, they can attach labels, they can attach thoughts to names. They can say, okay, we feel like this player might be thinking this, or this executive might be thinking this. This is the rare case where somebody who is currently in a managerial role with a hockey team goes on a podcast and says, yeah, that guy, he screwed us. He screwed us with the draft picks. He screwed us with the trades. We could have had O'Reilly, but we didn't. And now it gets to a point where you think, okay, what if Ron Hextall wasn't in charge and let's say Bobby Clarke and the rest of the scouts that the Philadelphia Flyers had their way? Then all of a sudden you have Cale Makar on the Flyers. All of a sudden you don't make that trade where you give away Schenn. You get Ryan O'Reilly onto this team. Dare I say this is probably a team that's a lot better and a lot more consistent with how it contends. Dare I say this is a team that probably goes out there and gives Claude Giroux another run or two in his career. Because Claude Giroux is kind of the one saving grace in Philadelphia right now, and you're probably not going to see this guy end the season in an orange and black sweater because he's likely going to get traded. He's been an absolute trooper the entire decade and a bit that he's been in Philadelphia, and how much has he had to show for it? One Stanley Cup Finals appearance a decade ago, and that's about it. I've been seeing the sentiment rising up a lot, saying, okay, darn it, if this is true, then Hextall pretty much wasted Claude Giroux's career. That's the top comment on the subreddit right now. And it's one of those things where I start to think, you know, revisionist history and everything, it's all easy to say, oh, you should have drafted Pettersson over whoever, you should have drafted Makar first overall, whatever, you should have drafted Hughes over Barrett Hayton or whatever, but like, to hear it actually come from an NHL person's mouth saying, yeah, we wanted to do that. We wanted it, but the team just couldn't get it because the guy in charge said no. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think about this entire drama over here? This is a drama. Like, I'm going to call this drama because you never see this happen. You never see NHL people in charge call out people who are still in the league today, but who are formerly with their organization. Like, I would be super surprised if Francesco Aquilini even mutters the word Jim Benning or Travis Green in any future press conference. The fact that Clarke went onto a podcast and just straight up labeled it out how it is, I'd be very surprised to see this become a trend in the NHL, but you know what? It's one that I would like to see because it makes for a very good conversation like this one. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think about Nolan Patrick, Cale Makar, the Flyers, Hextall, Clarke and his comments, the Cam Strick Podcast. I'll try to find a link to the podcast and leave it in the description if you want to go ahead and listen to that yourself. I hope you enjoyed this Visuals 99, and bye.